And that's yet another DDG win.
What is up, Dead Draw Gamers? Welcome to the DDG podcast, the brand new DDG podcast. We are recording this about a week after announcing the brand new DDG team roster. Got a fantastic group of players now. Three of them joining us tonight. We have Gabriel Smart, Moffitt, and Piper Lepine. Also on the roster, we have Hunter Butler, Finnegan Lynch, and our back-to-back champion, Andrew Hedrick. Go around here and introduce our players here tonight. We want to start off with Nicholas Moffitt, coming off of several back-to-back top 4 appearances. So want to give a little intro for yourself?
Yeah, hi everyone, I'm Nick. I've been playing for about 10 years now, took some breaks in there with school and everything. Only really got super serious about it after coming back from the pandemic though, and I've seen pretty great success since then. I got back-to-back top 4 recently at, Orlando and Knoxville, both with the Rayquaza Raikou deck.
Awesome. And we got Gabriel Smart coming off a almost top 8 at Vancouver, but a very well-deserved top 16. How are you doing?
Good, yeah. So my name is Gabriel Smart. Obviously part of Dead Draw Gaming. Now super excited to be here. I have been playing kind of similar to Nick for about 10 years, kind of off and on though. I've been playing really consistently for the past about 3 to 4 years. I currently have 690 points, and I bubble out of top 8 at a lot of regionals. So, yeah.
And then the heavy hitter of tonight, 2-time champion this season, Piper. How are we doing?
Good. I'm Piper. I've also been playing for about 10 years. Seen success in all 3 divisions, won 2 regionals this season and top 8 in another. So
awesome. Yep. I should mention, I think all 3 of y'all are in top 25 or so currently, right?
I think we're all top 16. I don't know.
I think
I haven't checked
or something right now.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, that's the team owner not doing his research and not knowing for sure.
I might be at a top 16 by now.
Yeah. So, alrighty. Well, yeah, we're gonna do this on a weekly basis. We're gonna have kind of a rotating podcast of all of our players throughout the season. We're gonna next week have Finnegan Lynch and Hunter Butler on, and then we'll kind of see how it goes past that, getting closer to EUIC and the new Scarlet Violet format. But tonight we're just gonna do a quick kind of recap of the past 2 tournaments. We had SV Utrecht and Vancouver the past couple of weeks. Also going to kind of get into a little bit of a discussion about League Cups potentially coming back pretty soon here. Some people may be very excited. Some people may be completely dreading it. And then we'll take a quick look at some of the Scarlet and Violet cards coming out, how that format's going to completely change. Okay. We're going to get to Scarlet and Violet and check out the format coming up. And then we'll look ahead to the Charlotte and Fort Wayne regionals and do a bit of a meta discussion there to see what the last 2 tournaments of this long Silver Tempest format is going to look like. So why don't we get into the League Cup discussion first? So I guess right off the bat, do y'all think we're even going to see League Cups this season? I think it's my kind of forecast that it probably won't happen until the new season kicks off. But what do y'all think?
Who should go first?
Oh yeah, why don't we go Nick, Piper, Gabe? Just the order of the screen here.
Based on the posts about people getting like the League Cup champion mats and them scrapping the PEM software and just sticking with Tom, that makes me think there's a good chance that they'll start them for 4th quarter of this year. Definitely for the start of next season, and that could be as early as, pretty soon after NAIC, which would be pretty cool. Hoping if they do come back this season that the best finish limit isn't too crazy, because I don't want to have to, go to 8 League Cups in order to maintain my top 16 placement. That would be a bit of a crazy thing, especially since I live in a pretty remote area for school and there's not too many card stores around. So hoping it's, best finish limit of 2 or 4 if they do end up bringing them back this season.
Yeah, I don't think they're going to bring them back this season. I think they might have been trying to bring them back this quarter, but logistically speaking, I doubt they'd just bring them back for one quarter at the end of the year. I wouldn't be too opposed to having them back because I missed both ICs so far this season, so give me a chance to catch up. Although I am going to the last two. But yeah, I also just enjoy locals.
Yeah, I'm kind of the same way. I enjoy locals as well. I think that the local scene is really, really important to growing the competitive Pokemon TCG base, which has, like as we've already seen, like even without League Cups and League Challenges, and also locals just kind of starting to come back, has been growing like pretty quickly. When it comes to the question of whether or not they're going to come back or not, I'm kind of under the same impression as Piper, where like they might have tried to bring them back earlier in the year, because I believe the Pokemon on the mat was something from Silver Tempest, which is like 2-3 months, or which is like actually like 4 or 5 months ago. So there's some clear delay there, but then again, Pokemon doesn't necessarily tell us anything. The one thing that like kind of surprised me was them removing the mask mandates. That was the one thing where I was like, oh, that's surprising. So I guess that's another thing that maybe now there's a chance that League Cups come back, simply because I think that was one of like the big things that like that was like holding back the League Cups, was because like mandating masks at thousands and thousands of League Cups would have just been like a logistical nightmare, since there's probably maybe 100 a week, just like there's a potential of like so many stores to host them like per week. I feel like it just would have been like a logistical nightmare, but now since that's gone, maybe there's a chance. But then again, only having that for like, I think someone said like if they were to come back at the beginning of Scarlet and Violet, we would only have like 10-11 weeks left of the season, so it would be just like a mad dash for League Cups, and then it becomes really awkward for people that are like pushing for top 16, and it just kind of would become a mess because they haven't told us anything about the League Cups yet, right? So we don't know anything even about them, so it would feel almost irresponsible for them to be like, hey, League Cups are coming back in a week, these are all of like the things, and just kind of like have fun. But then again, Pokemon is kind of known for that. So yeah,
it also doesn't even make sense. If they wanted to start with Scarlet and Violet, it starts on April 15th. You would think if they should have already had the stores organized to start scheduling League Cups by now. Mm-hmm. And if they wanted to start League Cups in 3 weeks, the stores should have already got the emails and the materials and everything, and we would have heard something by now, right? Like some store would have leaked that they've gotten emails from Pokemon to set up the League Cups. I hope it still happens. I mean, I hope it, they come back in the later part of April at the latest. But yeah, it kind of seems like, the Alolan Vulpix on the playmat was from the pack art of Scarlet and Violet. So, maybe they wanted to try to bring it back in January, February. It just didn't work out. But what was the best finish limit before everything shut down? It was 8 cups, eight challenges. Yeah.
So yeah, challenges too. Oh my goodness. So yeah,
it was a really bad system. It was like, yeah, it was not good.
Well, the year before, the year everything was shutting down, it was 8 per quarter. Like before that, they've been doing 2 per quarter, and then they changed it to 8 per quarter for 1 year. Like, ugh.
Yeah, I think the 2 per quarter was good because you could just go year 2. It's like even if you don't win both of them, it's fine to have 2 top 4s or a top 4 and a second, whatever. But yeah, it was. I wasn't chasing top 16 back then, but it was definitely pretty crazy that you could have 8 and a quarter count towards the stipend for that quarter.
I remember there were people that would literally fly to League Cups, or which is just absurd. That some of like the stipend chasers would be like, okay, like there are like 2 League Cups on this weekend, and it's an hour like flight away. We're just gonna like head up and stuff like that. Like it was absurd. Yeah, no, definitely.
Yeah,
it was bad. I remember that year. I got like 400 points in the first quarter just from like all League Cups. It was stupid. I was just like, no.
Yeah, I was saying ideally I think they would just not have them count towards stipends and overall top 16, and because it is a great way for newer players to get some points on the table, and then they can go to the regionals to kind of round out their invite. But even with 8 cups to have potential to get 400 points when they're only having 350, I don't think you should be able to get your invite exclusively from local events either. So it's definitely a fine balance for sure.
Yeah, they limited it somehow for the top 16 race, and you're still able to get 80 to 90% of your invite just through the cups and challenges. I think that is really important for the growth of the kind of overall ecosystem, right? Because there's a lot of people that just don't go to regionals, and they should be able to go to like a regional or 2 if they want to and still get their invite. I would hope.
Yeah.
What do y'all think of that? That's another good conversation, right? Like, how hard should the invite be? Because some people are like, you go to a bunch of local events, you do well, you should be able to get your invite that way. Magic kind of works that way, where they have like a staged way to get to larger tournaments. But what do y'all think of like how difficult and how many people should be getting their invite? Because this season they kind of halved it almost.
Yeah,
I guess I'll Nick can start if you. Okay, yeah. So I guess I'll start here because I think there's only like 25 to 30 masters at most currently in the USA that have their invite, which is like really, really small. And I guess it kind of depends on so I personally am like under the impression that I wouldn't be against there being League Cups challenges and then you only need 350 to 400 points because I think it's important for the game to grow. And there's a lot of players right now that have been like really discouraged to play competitively because they don't feel like they can, go to 6 or 7 regionals, which, like, to be honest, we're kind of the minority that we have, like the funds and like the capabilities to go to the majority of events. And even then it's still very, like financially taxing for us to do that, even though we're like performing really well. So I think that League Cups and stuff like that are really important. And I'm not against like the CP threshold even being lower than it was like this year, simply because these regionals are getting so big. Like I mean, like at Orlando, there was like 1,480-ish masters, which means that even if you go 5-3-1, you're probably missing points, which is like pretty difficult. So since points are relatively difficult to come by like these days, I would not be against them like for next year, even if there were League Cups and League Challenges, to have like the point threshold even be like considered lower, because like that just makes a day one for Worlds larger, and most of like the players that arguably shouldn't be making it into day two probably aren't going to make it regardless, right? Because they would have to go like 6-2 or 7-2 or something like that, right? But I think just at least giving them the opportunity to do so is something that's like really important.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And also, they should make it to where I don't understand like how you could win a regional, even win multiple regionals and not get your invite, right? Yeah. They should do some kind of system like they do in Japan where you get like top 4 maybe, and you get an automatic invite to World Championships. What do y'all think about that? Because I mean, I know Piper's already got her invite, but you definitely, there was a point where she didn't have her invite after winning 2 regionals. Yeah, which is kind of absurd.
That's crazy, yeah. I'm personally of the belief that Worlds should be more exclusive than it is the last few years, not less. And yeah, it's kind of ridiculous that you can win a regional and not, with over 1,000 people and not get your invite. It's kind of weird because, globally we have such different ranges of tournaments. Like you look at Australia, you can have a regional with 100 people and it still awards 200 points. And then you come over to the US and you have to play with 1,200 or 1,500 people and still only get the same 200 points. So I think that's the real disconnect there, is it should be a higher bar actually for CP, but then raise the point threshold that you get when there's over 800 players or over 1,000 players. That would be my way to go about it.
Yeah
I agree with that. I think there's like, especially I think it was the last event in South America, like 6 or 7 6-3s made top 32 and went into day 2. The US, you have like over 128 people making day 2 and people getting 256 points for playing 6 more rounds.
Right.
Like that just shouldn't be a problem. Like there's obviously issues of scaling, because I went like 10-3-2 at a couple events last year and got top 32, but I'm pretty sure 9-3-2 at a European SPE made it into top 8.
Right.
Like there's just issues with records at different events, but you're getting more chances at the smaller event to do better, whereas at larger events you're getting less.
Right. Y'all be in favor of like capping the so like at the Open, they'll take 600 players, 800 players and make their own flight. Would you be in favor of having, if it's a regional that's going to be over 1,600 players, 1,500 players, them just splitting it up in 2 flights and everyone gets top 16 or top 32 rewards as if it's its own tournament. We're like, how do you fix the problem where we're getting 1,600 players and the rewards just aren't comparable to other
just add more rounds? I think that's the only answer.
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, eventually I feel like we're gonna get to a point where we need like 7 rounds in day 2. Like even at UIC, there's like 2,000 TCG players registered. Like there's gonna be a ton of people in day 2, so we're probably gonna need to hit the 7th round. Otherwise, you're just gonna have a bunch of you're gonna have a bunch of 11-2-2s bubbling, or only a couple bubbling in or something, which is kind of rough.
Yeah. That'd be an insane day 2, though. I can't imagine playing 9 rounds, playing 7 rounds, possibly getting to the top 8, playing, it's insane, a crazy weekend.
To be fair with ICs, they can like delay to the Sunday for top cut. So then you're only playing 7 rounds day 2. So it's a bit more like Worlds in that sense.
They should do that anyways. They should have moved top 8 and top 4 to Sunday anyways.
I don't think
the one that's really going to be interesting in AIC.
Yeah.
I was gonna be so big.
Yeah, flights doesn't solve the problem.
Yeah,
it merge at some point unless you want to have 2 champions. Should be kind of weird.
Well, you could have it like the open, but the issue with that is then you have like player. You could have one 600 person flight and then another that's 600, but one of them has like all the top 16 players in it and the other doesn't, and one is like significantly easier than the other.
That's what happened last year at NAIC. It was like one flight was way more stacked.
And then you also have to run 2 events at once, which is like quite a bit to deal with the organizers because they're already going to have issues like running one. And then, I don't know. It just seems like it has a lot of problems on its own.
Yeah, you could distribute the players based off of like their CP ranking or Pokemon play point rankings, but I would not trust Pokemon to like get that set up properly. So cool discussion though. All right, looking ahead to Scarlet and Violet, we've got 2 more tournaments in the current format, but we're gonna have Scarlet and Violet come out not this week, but I guess the end of next week. Pre-releases have been going on. Those have been super fun, some super cool cards. Why don't we just go around and kind of pick out what we're most excited about with this set coming out, be it just the end of Silver Tempest format or a new deck or getting Nest Ball back, whatever it is. Why don't we go reverse order this time? Start with Gabe, then Piper.
So I think that Gardevoir obviously is one of the most talked about cards in the new set. So I think Gardevoir is really cool. One of my new favorite cards is Miraidon. I really like the synergy that it has with some of the brand new cards, like the new Electro Generator card that attaches energies. I think the ability to hit turn 1, 220 is pretty cool. And I think actually a lot of the supporters in the set are like really interesting because there's a lot of effects on the supporters that we haven't seen on cards in the past. And I guess like one of Pokemon's like biggest issues over the past few years is they just like reprint the same effects on different cards. But when it comes to Scarlet and Violet, there's like a lot of like brand new effects. Like one searches for like an item in a tool card. Like there's actually like a lot of like really cool things. One also the Miriam, I believe, is you put 5 Pokemon from the discard back into the deck, then draw 3. Like those are effects that like we really haven't seen in the past before. So I guess those are like some of my like favorite cards with like the new supporters, and also like Miraidon I think is cool too.
Yeah, I agree. I like search supporters like Irida, Karina, so Arven's pretty good in that sense. I will say I'm very excited for Sablezard to come back. I really like that deck. I played it a ton at the end of Lost Origin and beginning of Silver Tempest. But it kind of fell off. So I think it's the best way to play Lost Box, but that's just me.
Yeah. I did just write an article on my top 10 anticipated cards from Scarlet and Violet. So for that, I'm going to say go check out the article on Cutter Tap. More than anything, I'm excited for the rotation itself rather than the actual new set, because I think just losing a lot of power and losing cards like Scoop Up Man, that is going to shake up the format more than even the new set will. And then, we have Nest Ball to replace Quick Ball. It's not quite as strong in most cases, but, or in a lot of cases, but I think it'll just be good to have a new format because we've been playing with, the this overpowered version of Lugia for too long now, in my opinion.
Yeah, and kind of reiterate your point there. We're also going to have a video from Nick come out on Friday, also about the top 10 cards from Scarlet Violet. So be sure to look out for that on our YouTube channel. I've got to say, I'm so excited to get lowercase EX cards back, from a competitive side viewpoint and from the collective viewpoint. I think it's really, really cool when Pokemon kind of goes back into its history, pulls, kind of something. I think it's been a long time since they had EX cards. Yeah. So that's going to be really cool, especially once they start getting the alternate art treatment, and then they're doing the silver treatment for the Gyarados and Arcanine EX. So that's super cool. One thing that's going to change, though, is the errata to tool cards. I know you're all looking forward to explaining over and over in tournaments this new rule to your opponents. How do y'all feel about this? Is it, think it's going to be healthy for the format, or you think it's just going to be an annoyance overall? And just whoever wants to jump in, just go for it.
Yeah, I don't think it makes too much of a difference. It's kind of just a slight nerf to cards like Irida and cards like Cramomatic, but other than that, I don't think it matters too much. That's the only real impact that it has that I can think of.
Yeah, we get like Jacques, Arvin, which like it couldn't. I feel like just getting 2 items would not be fair. So I think it's good that they did do the errata there. Having it like so you can't just Irida for Forest Sealstone or like Belt Jelly, whatever you want, is pretty good. You can't Mew for it either, which is
that's fine,
one. But yeah.
Yeah, I think it's more or less of an annoyance than like something that's gonna like completely like change the game. I actually, going back to rotation, I think that the game gets a lot more skillful. Like I think with cards like Scoop Up Net, like leaving the format as well, and then also like we see like some of like these new changes, like the tool card thing like coming in, like that's actually like really big for Mew, because there's been a lot of times where like you might have to like Cramomatic away some type of tool, like occasionally like an extra like Forest Seal Stone or something. Like now you can't actually do that. So I think the errata is not gonna complete, like I don't think it changes any decks. I think that's pretty fair to say. It doesn't like completely change how decks are made. However, it is something to consider whenever you are going through like that deck building process. So I'm more or less curious to see exactly how like other players kind of like react to that change.
I think the other thing with the tool errata is it also like opens up the like now we can have better tools. Like overall, there were a lot of kind of crap tools in Sword and Shield, so now they can like print better effects. Since right now there's only 1 search card for tools. I don't know. I haven't looked at the set list in a while, but yeah.
Yeah, I think there's only going to be that supporter, which in and of itself is a little lackluster, I think, in most decks, right? So, and looking at the Japanese results and just some early deck lists, some new decks, obviously going to be Gardevoir EX, Miraidon EX, Lost Zone is looking to be really strong still. Mew VMAX is looking to be really strong. Just real quick, from each of y'all, what do you think is going to be your top deck? I know Piper mentioned Sablezard, and maybe Gabe will continue with his Mew VMAX streak here. But what are y'all looking forward to in playing with the new format?
I think I'll definitely be experimenting with a lot of different Lost Zone decks and just trying to find the best one, whether that's Giratina or Charizard or Kyogre or whatever else we're able to come up with. So that's where most of my focus is going to be. And then I also want to try out the other decks like Miraidon, Gardevoir, the new version of Lugia with the single strike. Mew hasn't really changed at all. All should be very strong for sure.
I guess I'll go second. I think that Miraidon is really, really good. I think that it's one of the most consistent decks in the format, simply because its ability basically reads you get to set up on turn 1. I think the capabilities to go judge turn 1 and then also pair that up with the KO on something is also just like really, really strong in general. That's kind of actually how I'm building my Miraidon list as of right now, is to like try and judge on turn 1 and then hit for like 220. I think that Mew also remains very, very good. Because Mew is arguably the deck that loses the least amount of cards. It really doesn't lose anything except for Quick Ball. And I think that when it comes to Lugia, I don't think Lugia is very good. I just think it has very good typing right now. I think the deck just kind of like in a vacuum is incredibly weak, except it hits really good like typings on, things like Miraidon because you have the Stone Journer, and also on things like Mew VMAX because you have cards, like the Tyranitar and the Drapion. But overall, in a vacuum, I think the deck is very weak. However, it just has really good typing right now. So it might be good for like this set, but I definitely would expect it to potentially die off after that.
Yeah, I think on Lugia, it kind of depends what special energies get printed. But I think Lost Box is just like in a really good position overall now. It kind of beats a lot of the newer stuff. Like Gardevoir, if you can get turn 2 Sableye consistently, which Sablezard has been doing for me, the lists right now are not dealt to deal with that. So you kind of just run over them. Most decks aren't built to deal with turn 2 Sableye, so I would say that's like really good in this format. Klefki's been very underwhelming so far in what I've tested, but I also think the Gardevoir engine is pretty interesting. Like without the EX, just like Refinement Kirlia, Shining Arcana, and Radiant Greninja has been very good for a draw.
Yeah, the metagaming going into EUIC is going to be very interesting. A lot of different plays that can come out of there. What were you going to say, Nick?
I was reading Shining Arcana right now. It lets you just draw 2 cards even if you don't get any.
It is a very good ability.
Yeah, I'm gonna actually say something on Klefki as well. I know that we had kind of a similar ability on Wobbuffet about 6 to 7 years ago. It's not exactly the same, right? But it was the big thing that made that card good was that you could slow down what like they were trying to do, but you could also take knockout after knockout. The problem is Klefki deals 10 damage a turn. So you can slow down the Lost Box player for 10 turns. However, you're doing absolutely nothing. So the card just sits there. Like the card is only there to buy time. It's not going to win you any game. So like I was testing it in Gardevoir and I was like, well, like, like I fully just like set up and then they just go Cramorant KO and I just lose basically. So the Klefki doesn't actually put any pressure on like cards like Wobbuffet in the past did. And I think that's the biggest thing that's going to hold it back. I think if it actually had an attack that, I don't know, at least did like 30 damage or something like that, then I think it'd be a lot better. But just doing 10 a turn means that you can't actually sweep with the card. So the card doesn't actually do a whole lot right now. Because I know I've been seeing some players that have been playing 2, 3, even 4 vanilla lists, and I'm just like, please don't do that. Like the card is actually not that good.
I think the only place where it's strong mainly is the Miraidon because you can use the hit and run attack on the basic Regieleki. So I think in that case, you can deal some real pressure and throw up the Klefki at the end of your turn. But outside of that, you could use it in a deck like Gardevoir to, buy yourself 1 or 2 turns to get your own board set up. But yeah, again, it's not putting any pressure. And Wobbuffet wasn't putting too much pressure either because it was kind of only dealing damage if they were already hurt, so.
Yeah, but you could like 5 or 6 shot them, so it just wasn't ever that.
Yeah, but usually it was still just setting up your board behind it, and that was very strong as well to shut off stuff like Shaman and all that. So, but we don't have that kind of strong draw power in this format, so maybe it's not as relevant.
Yeah, also on Wobbuffet, like the main decks that played Wobbuffet were like Primal Groudon or Trevenant, where you need like barely any bench space. A lot of the decks in this format need quite a bit of bench space. Like at the point where you have 2 Klefki on your board, it might just be better to have like support Pokemon or like I don't know. I feel like it's not doing as much because you have to have the 2, otherwise Lost Box just goes escape rope since they're playing 4 ropes now. Like I don't know. It's very underwhelming.
Yeah. Primal Groudon was kind of a deck as well. It's just like you just needed to set up and you just like would just kind of just like steamroll them. When it comes to like all these decks in the format, since there's so many 1 prize based decks, you can set up as well, but then they're also probably going to be, a 1 or 2 prize based deck, so they can just, kind of go like toe to toe with you. Whereas like back in the day, you were just trying to set up one like massive attacker, and then like once you set that up, then you just win. However, the game's completely different now, so that's another big thing too.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, we still got 3 weeks to figure out the format. We already got 2 articles over on Cut and Tap. Hunter Butler went over 3 or 4 deck lists, including Gardevoir, Oinkologne, and I think UV backs, and then Nick's got a great top 10 article out there. We'll have more in the coming weeks. So, but back to
the top 10 somewhere. I don't remember exactly where, but
it's like 5-ish. He had him mid-tier or so. So cool. All right, back to the Silver Tempest format. The most recent event that went down was the special event Utrecht over in Europe. Very kind of different top 8 than the most recent North America event, which would have been Vancouver. That top 8 was basically all Lugia with, I think, UV Max and another deck in there. But Arceus Duraludon took down the SPE, Nico Alavas. No surprise, another, limitless guy winning an event in Europe. What do y'all think of the results over there? I mean, it was a top 8 with 2 Arceus, and it's Arceus Duraludon, Arceus Inteleon, 3 Gudra, and then a kind of mixture of other decks. Not so much any Lugia, really. Completely different from what we're seeing over here.
I guess I'll start here. Yeah, so seeing Duraludon win is like never surprising in my opinion, like just because it's a deck that if someone plays it enough amount of times, like someone is just going to hit, like all the right matchups. And it seems like Nico hit a lot of really good matchups. I know they hit Gudra in finals, right? Which is just a naturally like really, really favorite matchup because you just hit like one like hyper potion in the game, it kind of just swings like over to you. One of the other big decks as well that caught a lot of people's eyes was Bernardo Diaz's Arcanteleon Beedrill deck, which I thought was really, really cool. I don't necessarily know if it actually beats Lugia consistently. I played a little bit of that matchup. I know that Azul was also playing some of that on his stream as well, and the matchup didn't feel particularly good. But I guess like one of like the biggest things over the past weeks, because I know that we just had like Vancouver as well, has also been the rise of Gudra. That's also been something that not a lot of players were thinking was actually going to happen. So that's, I think, like one of the biggest like things is like the rise of decks that counter Lost Box, being Gudra and also Duraludon. It's actually crazy because Lost Box was kind of considered the second best deck in format, and now has almost completely fallen off the face of the earth towards like the very end of the format, just because Gudra and Duraludon are just soaring in popularity right now.
Yeah, I was most surprised to see the 3 Gudra, if anything. I mean, Arceus, Duraludon, it's always in and around there, so it was more or less only a matter of time before someone got lucky with it. But yeah, 3 Gudra in top 8, and then also the Arceus Beedrill was certainly not something I was expecting to see this format. I think I did test it a little bit for Latin America, for LAIC, but then ended up scrapping the idea pretty early on. Let me just look if he's got anything special in here. He also does have the Charizard in there, so that's definitely helps for sure.
Duraludon hasn't won any other events, has it?
It won Milwaukee.
It won Milwaukee.
Yeah.
Okay. I was actually surprised to see Duraludon win. Like, I just wouldn't expect it to go that far. But I mean, I guess you put it in the hands of Nico in Europe. It's a tournament this size with the format, how the format shaped out. It's not as surprising, but I am surprised and would have been more surprised when it won Milwaukee. So
yeah, Lugia decks have definitely been getting really greedy as well. With one lost vacuum, 1 choice belt. Tord played no choice belt, no lost vacuum, so obviously he instantly folded to a single Duraludon in top 4. But yeah, I mean, Lugia could go back to playing more choice belt, more lost vacuum to try to counter things like Duraludon. But yeah, lately they've been rocking only the 1, so that definitely helps Duraludon there.
Yeah, I think the Lugia players have just became the Lugia players have just became like so focused on beating Mirror, which is like kind of allowing this, because like Mirror is obviously like the one matchup that like you have to care about. So someone like Tord was just like, I don't care about anything else. I'm just gonna beat Mirror and Lost Box. So they kind of just cut all the other attacks, and now this is kind of like the result, right?
Yeah, I mean, there's like the 2 ways to play Lugia. There's Tord's like 17 energy list, which you're just gonna have the most consistent day with, or you could go with Ian's list. I think Ian's list like overall is better into like a 1,000 player event, but especially in Europe events, I feel like metas tend to be a bit more predictable since they're smaller. Like Gudra didn't really do great in the US until Vancouver, whereas like it's been doing well in Europe for the last couple months. Like this is the second time Stefan's made like semifinals with Gudra. Yeah.
And then looking back at Vancouver, Gabe, you took 9th place with Mew VMAX. What was your thinking going into this tournament, switching from your mainstay Lugia over to Mew VMAX?
It was actually 10th, but we both had the same record, so technically, like, we'll say it's 9th. But when it comes to
shared 9th, how about that? Yeah.
yes, so me and Cameron both shared 9th. So I guess it's actually kind of what Utrecht has kind of started to become, is that the Duraludon has been clearly on the rise. And also when it comes to Lugia, there's not a really large amount of decks that actually can counter it, nor are there really any combos that can consistently counter it. And when I was, kind of looking through the card pool, I was like, there's one card that consistently beats this deck if you pull it off, and that is the Aerodactyl, and there's pretty much nothing they can do. Like I think that a lot of like the other like strategies are kind of just like copium, like just because just Lugia is just like the best deck. Like it's just so powerful. So I was like, if I can beat Lugia most of the time, because when you go first, you pretty much just win with the turn 2 Dactyl, and then when you go second, you always have that option to judge path them, so you do have 2 solid routes to beat them. So I think that's kind of what I looked at heading into the format. And I also noticed that Lost Box has been seeing a lot less success recently, as well, because we saw Weezing see a lot of success at Knoxville as well, which I think was going to scare off some like Lost Box players. And I think it kind of just was like the perfect storm where like Duraludon's on the rise, Lugia is still the most played deck, and also Gudra is seeing a lot of popularity, and it kind of worked out actually. So yeah.
Yeah, speaking of Lost Box not showing up, I wasn't in Vancouver, so that might have.
Yeah, there was not a whole Lost Box. There was so much Gudra though. Like there was a lot of like Gudra and like Lugia.
Ray particularly is very good into Gudra. Yeah. Definitely not other versions of Lost Zone, but I've definitely had a very favorite Gudra matchup.
Yeah. Also, Gudra like originated from West Coast players, I think. Like at least San Diego. So like, yeah, makes a lot of sense that Vancouver had a ton of Gudra players, because I know like a ton of Oregon players played Gudra to San Diego, and that's like a 6-hour drive. It's
really wild how regional the formats can be. We'll have West Coast, other parts of America, Europe, South America is always wild. Cool. All right. Well, in a second, we're going to get into our outlook for Charlottesville this weekend and Fort Wayne the following weekend. We're going to wrap it here up on YouTube and our regular podcast and take this discussion over to Cutter Tap. If you're a stage 2 subscriber or member on Cutter Tap, you'll be able to listen to the rest of this podcast and the meta discussion. Over on YouTube, in a few weeks for EUIC, we're actually be giving out a Nintendo Switch LED, brand new, courtesy of a Win-A-Box tournament down in San Antonio. Put down there and swept the thing to get some giveaways for the YouTube channel. So be sure to subscribe, and we've given that out the weekend of EUIC. But thank you all so much for watching, and we'll catch you next time.